let's hit that button. Get rid of a few bits and pieces. And then we will... Ray. Please? There we go. It's that awkward moment. Please turn on. Pretty please turn on. There we go. Right. You all know the drill. Share the link. Tell people that we are here. Mostly because I've shared it around in all the various other places. Friday night, again, like I say, just the wonkiness of life on that front. But also we did have a game on Wednesday, therefore we are allowed to not turn. we're allowed to forego the stream when we have to go do other bits and pieces. Good chunk of stuff to talk about tonight. If you're watching on catch up, you know the drill. In fact, what we will do, if you're watching on catch up, no specific word, but just put in your comment in the chat. Put in your comment on underneath the video. What I'll say is put down what you're drinking on a Friday night whilst you're watching on the catch up, or you're drinking on a Saturday night or whatever. What drink have you got when as you're catching up with the show, as you wait for people to come in? Warm up question is there, of course. Does your team make a move before the signing deadlines? Of course, there's a few bits and pieces flying around, trying to, of course, keep up the bits and pieces, making sure that we can catch all of the news. And of course, Andrew being Andrew has done me WNH show notes. So a few people, so we're getting some ideas. We'll just give it another minute or so for people to come in. Make sure, of course, to share the link for the stream out. Let's get some people in. Bristol just put up some photos of people from 2016, and Tommy Nappier's hair is a choice. Me oh my. We appear to be rolling. So, of course, there's been bits of news today. The other thing, of course, that we do need to do is, very, very quickly, get up the name of Hull's new netminder, because I'm going to read it out rather than trying to remember it, because it's long. It's a hard one, that one. But I will have a step at it, because I think I can say it correctly when I'm reading it, as it were. Well, as the old as the coaster says, I just want to watch hockey and ignore all of my adult problems. Well, it's Friday, so let's talk about hockey and ignore all of our adult problems. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid, and all beyond the binary. It is Friday. It is 8 PM, and welcome back to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through another week and a bit's worth of the wild, wonderful, and wacky world that is British ice hockey. We focus on the lot. We cover the entire gambit of British hockey, from Leeds to Lee Valley, Belfast to Bradford. No stone is left unturned. We'll talk about the Elite League. We'll talk about the National Division, both of which have games going on right now. We'll talk about NHL Division 1 and Division 2 in the north and in the south. We'll talk about the SNL. We'll talk about the WNIHL. And all will be rocking and rolling. Hope everybody is doing well. This week has felt incredibly long for the very simple fact I'm off work next week. So, of course, you know that this week has felt incredibly long. But it does mean, of course, as we're on a Friday stream, it means we can crack out the good stuff, or at least the drinkable stuff, which in this case is a massive bottle of Kronbacher, because I just wanted something Germanic and Pilsnery to celebrate the end of the week. Oh, that is the good stuff, if nothing else. As somebody who watches a lot of German TV, there are adverts for Kronbacher everywhere. It is your archetypical beer that you can find pretty much everywhere. And it's the sort of thing I don't normally drink when I'm in Germany, because there's like a bajillion beers everywhere you go. So unless you are particularly from, and I'm forgetting where Kronbacher's from off the top of my head, I'm pretty certain it's Rhineland way. But it will do the job on a Friday night when I've got a weekend of chilling out and then commentating on hockey, and then a week of doing adult life. Because next week Next week, stream will be back on Wednesday because next Friday, your boy is heading across the Irish Sea. Either way, before we dig too much, there's news to talk about. There's 2 games going on live right now, which we will touch base on momentarily. But of course, we better do the bits of housekeeping before we start. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one website for all things British hockey related. Of course, a busy week at BOTW because, of course, the main series this season is In the Box Thinking. Which gives you my breakdown and my bits of insight on my commentary journey this year as the person commentating on the Guildford Flames in the Elite League. In the Box Thinking is my series where I sort of give you a bit of insight as to what it's like to commentate on the games, and then a bit of a breakdown of the action that we've seen. And given the fact that I have done 3 games this week, there is a lot on the website to catch up on. So you currently have last Saturday's game against Fife, last Sunday's game against Cardiff, and Wednesday's game against Belfast. There are pieces for those all up already on the website. And then, of course, the Flames are at home on Sunday to Nottingham Panthers. You will get a piece at some point, probably Monday or Tuesday, during the week as to that one. But play, like I say, the entire season's worth, and of course you've got the back catalogue of everything we've ever done, game write-up wise, banners on the road, and of course the new banners on the road coming soon on that front. And of course you've got Running with the Herd with Basingstoke Bison back from out of the mist, just out of sight. We even have a couple of those on the website this year. The other thing to catch on the website, of course, is our Hockey Story series, long form, in-depth pieces of content. We talk about hockey history, people's journeys, people's stories, all kinds of wonderful, brilliant things. And it's going to be awesome. Like I say, a few ideas are still kind of percolating for the next one at the mo. It's just time at the mo, and given the fact that we are tomorrow will be 2 months before the 15th birthday of BOTW, so trying to think of something to do for the 15th anniversary as well at the mo, and just time and energy is a factor, but there's plenty of stuff there. You can go check all of it out, nearly 15 years worth of stuff to check out over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. The other bits, of course, are all of your YouTube spiel. Head down into the description for the link to all of our socials. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Blue Sky, and of course there's the link down there to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. BOTW isn't going behind a paywall. However, if things cost money because of the society we live in. So if you like what you see, if you like the coverage that you get, and you want to help contribute to keeping the wheels turning and the lights staying on, please do feel free to go and do that over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you don't have the money, absolutely cool. Share stuff out, like stuff, help us fight the algorithm, feed the algorithm the hamster, keep them happy, fat and fed. And the other thing, of course, is I know lots of you watching on catch up. Hope you're doing well. If you join us live, of course, you get the one that is the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to jump into chuck into the conversation as we talk our way through British hockey, then please feel free to do so. All we ask is that if you are joining in the chat, that you remember the golden rule here at BOTW. Rule number 1, DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings, and we'll have a jolly good time. There are 2 games cracking on at the moment, one in the Elite League and one in the National Division. And Andrew, the social media scoreboard machine himself, Mr. Day, has already put them in the chat for everybody to check out. End of the first period in Glasgow. Clan 0, Coventry Blaze 1. William Boyson, the Dane, for the Blaze on the board after just 8 seconds of play. And then the one game in the NIHL, we'll talk about their week that they've had a little bit later. But the Sheffield Steel Dogs 1-0 to the good against the Basingstoke Bison. Bear Gendenov with the goal just before the halfway mark of the first. That game has hit the 20-minute mark as well. Stuck in the chat as well. Do you think your team makes any moves before the deadline? I can see Jamie's in. Possibly, if so, could be an import. That's some thoughts there about MK. And I know Dave, of course, with the Raiders and the Kodiaks has stuck something we should have a look. Of course, Raiders well practice at dismissing players, especially hard-working ones. Yes, the departure of Tom Palmer from the Raiders has gone down like a lead balloon for some, by the looks of it. As for the Kodiaks, they struck while the iron was hot and secured a new player, Willow Oakley, to fill in a gap in D. Of course, it's been a pretty decent first crack at WNHL 1 for the Kodiaks. So interesting to see they have made some moves. I know there's been some other moves in the WNIHL, which we will talk about later on in the show. Big thanks to Andrew, as always, on that front. But there are a few bits of signing news, of course. Not tons and tons out of the Elite League, it should be said. But there is a fair few a couple of moves and bits and pieces that have happened outside of the Elite League, certainly in the National Division, the big news coming out of Hull, of course, not a great season for the Seahawks so far, down in 7th, much lower down than Matty Davies would like them to be. And we saw during the week a couple of moves. Firstly, Lee Hayward coming out of retirement to rejoin the Seahawks. I did think it was a very brave move of the Seahawks social media team to say, oh, he's been known by many nicknames, what do you call Lee Hayward? Because that just felt like an invitation for everybody across British hockey Twitter to use swear words at Hull's social media. I did mention this fact to Matty Davies, and all I got back was a laughing emoji. So cheers for that one, Matty. And then the slightly more surprising move came, and it was generated by another piece of news out of Hull. Brock Bartholomew, seemingly done for the season, picking up an injury in the game against the Bison last weekend. Bartholomew out for the long term for the Seahawks. Of course, they were struggling defensively. Bartholomew, former big fan favourite, highest scoring defenseman in the National Division in his full season here a couple of years back, comes back to Hull. And this, of course, gave us this situation of the 5 imports at the world's most versatile arena, the rotating around, and that ended up with Owen Sobchuk, last year's MVP of the National Division, leaving Hull for Leeds. And now Bartholomew injured, which of course has forced Matty Davies into another move. And the big shock came and kind of gave us an idea of where we were going. Dimitri Zimostra, long-term former playoff winning veteran netminder in the National Division and EPL level, released by the Seahawks, and it means that Hull have chosen to go down the import route as they look to gear up for the playoffs. Finnish netminder Aleksanteri Heiskanen has been brought in by the Seahawks to shore them up and join Jordan McLaughlin for the rest of the campaign. So having a quick look as we look together at Heiskanen's numbers, has not played this season. My understanding is that he's just been waiting for a contract that he was happy with, waiting for the right offer more so than he's not been injured is what I am told. Spent last year in the Alps League with HK Celje, who are a Slovenian side. The Alps League kind of operates in that space just below the Ice League. So the Ice League that has the Austrian teams and teams from Hungary and Slovenia in it as well. His team now not active. The team has stepped away from playing. Slovenian hockey does have issues with teams. Sort of and financial issues. Lubania have had a lot of issues in the past. So just wanted to have a quick look because the Alps League is a funny league. It is above this level, but it can be a bit of a wide tent in terms of its quality. I'm just quickly flicking through the stats and looking at the 24-25 standing. So his team finished 9th in the main round, and then managed to drag themselves into avoiding relegation at that point. So that was obviously pretty useful for them. Looking at the rest of Heiskanen's stats, he's obviously a Finnish player, grew up playing in the HKJ youth system. Brief bit of time actually spent on the books of Jokerit when Jokerit were in the KHL. Bit of time in the Mestis, which is the Finnish second tier. Spent some time in the Hockeyettan, which is the third tier of Swedish hockey, as well as a very brief period during COVID with Zvolen, which is a team that's produced a bunch of players that have played over in here. Probably one that immediately springs to my mind for Bison fans, Victor Kubenko, played for Zvolen, and now obviously having had a bit of a break and waiting for the right offer to come along, he will now step in and join the Hull Seahawks. Although one that's slightly passed under the radar in terms of Hull is Theo Malone. Theo Malone, Manchester Storm product, has spent a fair bit of time actually with the Storm, but now having been announced today as joining the D-side Dragons on a two-way. So he has moved away from being dual registered with the Seahawks to now only be registered with the Storm and the D-side Dragons, which is an interesting move. Though I think there's something to be said for the fact that Malone needs ice time in some of those higher end roles. And with all due respect, I don't think this is so much about about having an issue with Hull for Manchester. We of course know that there's a relatively decent link up there. Noah Kararainen, Josh Crawley, and people like that. But Malone at 16 needs to play. His role with Manchester is quite small, and his ability to now go and play for going to Hull, he's not going to get top line minutes at Hull at this point. Given the sort of roster that Hull have, he's going to be playing third and fourth line minutes, which ultimately, when you're 16, given the fact that D-side will look having another sort of top end guy. Will he immediately jump onto a line with people like Jake Witkowski and Colin Cromie? Remains to be seen. But being able to insert a player of that level of talent into your middle six, particularly as we know that D-side are going to want to push for the playoffs, Malone will not be eligible to play in any cup competition. Of course, we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But good news. It's certainly good news for Theo Malone. He's going to be getting plenty of ice time between Manchester and North Wales going forward. If nothing else, not having the Hull aspect of that for a 16-year-old, pretty helpful, given the fact you'd have to go from kind of Manchester over to Hull to go across to D-side in North Wales. Certainly, I don't think anybody would be massively happy about that one. Just trying to flick through it as well about the other news, but a lot of the big news obviously coming out of Hull over the last couple of days on the player movement front. The other bit of news though that has come out in the last hour or so is from the Cardiff Fire. Pretty torrid season for the Fire at the bottom of South 1, but they have announced that former Cardiff Devil and of course Great Britain netminding legend Stevie Lyle has joined the Fire as a director. Now obviously, having a player like that on board for a team like the Fire is going to be massive. Being able to bring in that level of extra level of experience and everything that comes with that, and just a bit of nothing else. Train the goalies, because you think about how Brocken and Gemma are going to do off the back of that one. The other bit of news, of course, that came out today is making his National Division debut tonight. Finn Williams in the lineup for the Steel Dogs this evening against the Bison. Unsure as to the amount of ice time he's going to get off the back of that, but obviously very important stuff for these young folk. We've seen Joe Matthewman step up from the Scimitars to be able to get some ice time with the Steel Dogs this season, and so the fact that the Steel Dogs are trying that pathway that goes officially from Scimitars up to Steelers, and that the Steel Dogs are opening their door and making sure some of those top end performers for the Scimitars, horrible season or not, are getting the opportunity to perform at a higher level. Lots to talk about, bits and pieces. Of course, we have Pride weekend coming up. It is upcoming over the next few days in the Elite League. It's Pride Night in Guildford on Sunday, for example, and we've seen jerseys coming out from all teams across the entire spectrum. I have to say, and I've already mentioned them, Cardiff Fires, absolutely superb. I think that's one of the better ones I've seen. Guildford's appears to have garnered a lot of positive attention. I do quite like it. It's got the sort of 80s. I mean, the logo already rips off Calgary, so they've just gone and paid homage to the 80s Calgary Flames jersey with the Pride jersey. Looks really good. For a sort of more in-depth look at a lot of these jerseys. The boys at Door 14 Hockey, you can go find them on YouTube. They had their show last night. Massive amount of chat about jerseys, as they all adore them. The one thing, of course, that has happened that we will talk about before we kick into the results, that happened between the last show and this one, because it happened, of course, over the past weekend, happened on Saturday, was the passing of Blake McCackey. You might be familiar with Blake. Blake's Wheels, young Belfast Giants fan, born with quite a rare genetic condition, and unfortunately, at the age of 18, has gone to watch the sport we love from far better seats than we ever get. Didn't have the opportunity to ever meet the young man, but of course was very familiar with his story, and being as I have, I know a few folk over in Belfast, people connected to the Giants, his loss has really made a big dent in the Giants fan community, and anybody losing their life prematurely, and 18 is definitely no age for a young man to be leaving this plane of existence, but it's clearly left quite a big mark. And if you haven't watched A View from the Bridge, I was watching on Tuesday whilst I was preparing for Wednesday's game, and to see a big man like Simon Kitchen be struggling to talk, unable to control, keep his emotions inside at the loss of a young man like Blake just tells you about the impact that he had on British hockey. And I said it on the broadcast last night, and I'll say it again now, just like love and light to his family and to the folk over in Belfast. It's hit everybody pretty hard over there, and just the sort of the fact, and I say the same thing I always say in these kind of situations, like hug your loved ones tighter, call that friend if you need to, say sorry if you need to, accept make peace if you need to. We are all stardust, beautiful and blown by the wind, so take that opportunity. And Blake, I hope you enjoyed Wednesday night wherever you were watching from, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the year, because that Belfast Giants side look like they are kicking on hard in towards another title contending campaign. So we'll grab that quickly, because if you've got one, Blake, cheers, my good man. Keep an eye out for it. Keep an eye out for us, and enjoy the hockey where you find it, my good boy. And now, Blake loved his hockey, so we shall love the hockey too. We will continue on, and we will have a quick look at the results from last weekend, starting as we traditionally do now on the show in the Elite League. And so I quickly move that down so I can see what I'm talking about. It's going to be a very emotional night at the Odyssey tomorrow night when the Giants pay tribute to Blake. Yeah, it will do. It will be for sure. But Belfast, having been to a funeral and a wake in Northern Ireland, there is. It will be a sad occasion, but it will be a joyful occasion. I know Blake's actual funeral was today, but if there's any place that can honour and pay tribute to someone in such an occasion, it will definitely be the folk on the banks of the Lagan. Either way, we head back to a week ago, last Friday, and the start of last week's Elite League action, and it was the start of a big double-header in Belfast between the Giants and the Steelers, and it was First Blood Belfast, a big 5-1 win for Belfast over Sheffield, and the same scoreline at the Storm Shelter. Manchester have had an interesting upswing year under first-year head coach Cam Critchlow. They've not been able to quite make the dent in some of the top-end sides all the time, but they're certainly making a real push for that 5th place, having been dangling around and missing the playoffs last year. Comfortable 5-1 win for them over the Clan. Last Saturday, well, like I say, you've got the in-depth, in-the-box thinking feelings on this one. The Guildford beating Fife by 6-2. Very surreal moment for me, like I say, commentating on David Booth and Milan Lucic. Dundee's poor form continues, and Coventry's upswing goes on. A big 5-2 win for them for Coventry at the DIA. Manchester, well, they get 3 points out of the weekend at least. They came back against Cardiff and got themselves all the way to the extras. But Riley Brandt with the shootout winner, and the Devils take the extra point. And then Belfast, well, it was bad on Friday for the Steelers. It was even worse on Saturday. Belfast 7, Sheffield 1, meaning over 120 minutes of hockey. Belfast put 12 past the Steelers, quite literally striking 12, and something orange turned into a pumpkin. Into Sunday, and Fife, well, they didn't have a good Saturday, but they got a much better Sunday out of things. 2 goals from David Booth, helping them to a 4-2 win over Dundee. 4-point weekend for the Blaze as they compounded the Clan's misery and won 4-1 in the Sky Dome. This game, and like I say, in the box thinking is there on the website for you to go and check out. Guildford 3, Cardiff 4. Flames having a goal ruled out late in this one because the referee blew his whistle incredibly early. But I should say, this was probably the best game I've seen in Guildford so far this season. It was brilliant. It was a really, really good game. Excellent for the neutral. And it should be said, a 3rd game-winning goal in 3 games for Riley Brandt. Someone who I was told when I started commentating in the league was the worst import in the league. He has now got his highest league points total in his 5 years of playing in Cardiff. So maybe all it needed was Paul Thompson to come along. And then there was Wednesday night, just the one game where you found me again. Guildford 1, Belfast 3. Ethan Strang putting the Flames 1-0 to the good before in the first. Gabe Bast with a power play goal in the second period, tying things up. Mike Lee with the game winner in the third before David Goodwin's empty netter finished things off and gave the Giants another 2 points, which sees them comfortably again at the top of the Elite League table. 2 points clear of the Devils with a game in hand. 3 points clear of Nottingham, but Nottingham do have a game in hand on the Giants, which of course keeps them very much in the conversation. Sheffield have played a game more than the Giants and are 8 points back off the end of losing both of those games in Belfast. Manchester, as I said, up in 5th. They have a 5-point gap over the Flames, followed by the Clan and the Blaze, who are in the playoffs at the moment. The Blaze have an 11-point gap over Fife. That's right, Fife aren't bottom anymore, albeit Dundee do have 4 games in hand on the Flyers and are only 2 points back at the moment. Games at the moment, as we know, Coventry and Clan in Glasgow is tonight. Blaze 1-0 to the good. Saturday, and a pretty full docket. Cardiff welcome Fife down to the Vindico. Sheffield look to get back on the horse against Manchester. Guildford have their first away game in about 2.5 weeks. They head to the NIC and take on the Nottingham Panthers, where they won 6-2 last time against Nottingham, giving the Panthers their first regulation defeat in, I think it was like 7 or 8 games. And Belfast take on Dundee for about the 85th time this season. Goal in Glasgow, I can see. Alex Forbes with the unassisted goal. I venture some assists will pop up on that one, but it remains to be seen. Either way, into Sunday, Sheffield Cardiff, always a classic battle of old. If you know, you know. Dundee take on Glasgow. Coventry take on Fife at the Sky Dome. Manchester take on Belfast. That could be a very interesting encounter. And then, of course, is where you will find me on Sunday, 6 p.m. face off at the Spectrum. Guildford and Nottingham, having done it in the Midlands on Saturday, we'll try again in the South on Sunday. We'll be you can get the live coverage from us over on Guildford Flames TV. I will be live from about the sort of the 5:55 mark to take you through all the action there. And then next Wednesday, as we'll be back for the What's Current stream, we will of course be keeping tabs on that game at the bottom of your list there. That is a Wednesday night encounter between the Glasgow Clan and the Nottingham Panthers. And then, well, we need to, after last Wednesday, we wondered what would happen. We were waiting to see who would join the Leeds Knights in the NIHL National Division Cup final. And the answer was clear, and the answer was emphatic. The Steel Dogs were 3-0 up by the end of the first period and 4-0 by the end of the second, and it ended up being very comfortable for them in the end. A 5-1 victory in the second leg for Slava Kulikov side against his old team of over a decade. A 9-5 aggregate win, and the Sheffield Steel Dogs are back in the cup final. Walker Summer, Ivan Björklund-Lundström, and a hat-trick from Bear Gendanov sends the Steel Dogs into the final. Jasper Foster with the lone goal for the Phantoms. That then took us into league action on Saturday. It was delight on the Saturday, delight on the Thursday for the Steel Dogs, but not on the Saturday down in Wiltshire. Swindon and Sheffield, a massive game potentially in the context of the National Division title, and it's a 6-3 win for the Wildcats. Basingstoke, well, they had a bit of a stinker, all things considered, and lost to Hull 5-1 with a very, very short bench because half the team was suspended. Such is the joy of things. Leeds started to fall away a little bit more again from the title race at the top. A 6-5 OT win for the Bristol Pitbulls, who are really starting to make a big case about their position in the playoffs. And then Peterborough slightly managed to get a bit of a bounce back after missing out on the cup final. Their 4-3 overtime win in Telford, denting Telford's advance northwards in the table. And then Sunday, Leeds, well, they managed to get a little bit of revenge, and they take the weekend split 3-2 over the Pitbulls, 5-2 the Knights win at the Castle. Solway and MK, with Milton Keynes getting the overtime winner in Solway. Apologies. I did mention Solway winning 5-4. That was my bad. That, of course, was the sort of the double header up in Dumfries there. But the Lightning, Sean Norris getting the OT winner for the Lightning against the Sharks. Romford condemned Telford to a 2-loss weekend. They win by 4-1 at the Sapphire. Another 4-point weekend for Swindon. It was a tight, close battle at the World's Most Versatile Arena, but the Wildcats win in regulation to get another 2 points. And Peterborough beat the slightly less short, but still pretty short, Bison by 5-3. And looking down there, I can see, and it's a name that we've been wanting in the National Division for quite some time, It's a goal for Basingstoke. They tie things up at Ice Sheffield. Ollie Hemmings-Marr has got the Bison on the board. Thanks for Jamie for sticking that in the chat. Oh, Hemmings-Marr from Milton, from Marcus Bradley. So I'm not sure. Certainly it's been a tough year of waiting for opportunities for Marcus Bradley. He's also gone down to Streatham and got some ice time in South 1. But on the score sheet tonight as he helps set up Ollie Hemmings-Marr for the Bison to tie things up there. So with those results from last weekend, we have a quick look at the National Division table, which, as you can see, well, it's going to be Sheffield will lead to the cup, but the Wildcats have themselves firmly in pole position when it comes to the league title race. 59 points from 35 games, a 7-point gap, and 2 games in hand on the Steel Dogs. The Knights have a game in hand on Swindon, but trail by 13 points. So the most they can catch up is that extra 2. They'll still be 11 points back. Peterborough in 4th place have overtaken Telford. MK in 6th. Hull in 7th, which of course is going down about as well as you'd expect it to. Romford in 8th, but tied on 30 points with Bristol, and the Pitbulls have a game in hand over the Raiders. The Bison still have games in hand over both. They are 4 points back over Bristol, and Bristol and Romford. They have 3 games in hand on the Raiders and 2 in hand over the Pitbulls, which would catch them up. Solway have 26 points. They are level on points with the Bison, but have played 3 games more than Basingstoke. Oh, that's annoying. That is frustrating because Max's bits and pieces have not been pulled through. That is very, very frustrating. We are going to have a think about that because the fixtures, we'll do the National Division fixtures momentarily. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Goal Glasgow. The Clan lead at home against Coventry. Brett Newman has put the Clan in front after Alex Forbes's bits and pieces. If you bear with me momentarily, we are going to try and just do a little bit of jiggery pokery and see if we can't get Max's graphics, because he obviously takes that big effort to make them for us every week. I'm not quite sure what's happened here. A little bit. To be fair, of all the tech flubs to happen, the graphics not loading at 100% is probably quite low down in the scheme of things. As to the things that don't work, that's taking an absolute age to load, and I don't quite know why. Let's see if we can't wrangle them this way, because I reckon there is a way to do something with this. Bear with me a mo, everybody, because like I say, something has gone sideways, and we will find a way to quickly pull up Max's graphics, because like I say, he spends an age making them for us. And I think it's only fair that we try and get them out of here. What we need, if I do this, because they should be able to find them. If I just take a moment to try and get them out, hopefully this will work. But like I say, it's all just having a bit of a funny 5 seconds here, because it's not working in the way I was wanting it to. Because why? Everything's just being very, very frustrating and not working for me now. Why is this not working? That's really irritating. Don't need that. Right, what we will do is we will keep working on that in the background and try and show those later. Let's come back to the full screen for a sec, because like I say, something is not quite working in the way I would like it to. But I think we should be able to do something with that. But yeah, either way, a lot going on across the two top divisions. Belfast have clearly started to push on and assert themselves much, much more than they had done. Two huge wins there against Sheffield, and ultimately able to do really, really do the business, getting all of those bits and pieces, and be able to just be able to sort of push themselves away. Obviously, as well, it's caused great perturbations in Sheffield. Nottingham, of course, because that's the other thing, of course, we don't have the graphics there from the Elite League website, but the Nottingham Panthers, of course, have won the Continental Cup for the first time in their history. And it's a huge result for the folk in Nottingham. Going through the first two games, getting shutouts, they got a little bit dicey against Torpedo towards the end there, having not conceded any goals at all in the tournament until until sort of the 57th minute of the final, and then it's 3-2 in the space of a couple of seconds. That was pretty terrifying, I think, for everybody Nottingham related. But they get the empty net goal, they get it over the line, and the dinner plate of destiny resides once again at the Motorpoint Arena. And Nottingham, of course, as a result, have got games in hand now that they cannot overtake Belfast. But there are two home and home weekends between Nottingham and Belfast to come before the end of the Elite League season. One in Belfast and one in Nottingham. So the league title race is going to go down to the wire again, it feels like, in the Elite League. In the National Division, it starts to feel like, having missed out on the Cup, the Cats are going full bore, eyes fully down for the full house. They want the league title. And if you think as well that Aaron Nell retiring from playing at the end of the year, Sam Bullas, who is threatened to retire multiple times. He's a bit like a pro wrestler, Sam Bullas. You don't wonder whether he ever actually officially will. Sheffield feel like they're a little bit too far back. It would take a pretty big collapse from the Wildcats for this one to fall down and to not bring the league title back to the Link Centre. At the bottom for the playoffs, though, the form of Bristol is now becoming a really big issue, particularly for Romford. That win for Romford, that 4-1 win over Telford, huge for the Raiders. Of course, people, like I say, questioning things a bit. Jason Buckman let go, Sean Easton coming back. A lot of questions going on really as to what Romford are trying to do and exactly what the point is there. But now, of course, what we will see with Hull, the league title for Matty Davis is gone. The Cup, long gone. And with Heiskanen coming in, you have to think that Matty is going to desperately want to get his hands on the playoff trophy, and he thinks that the new Finnish netminder is a means to doing that. I did say there'd be assists coming, and the whole fourth line in Glasgow gets in on the deal. The first goal for the Clan. Now reading Forbes from Parry and Austin Mitchell-King. So we did wonder if that was coming, and it did. What's Jamie said here? Interesting point in the MKL is the Lightning have the top 3 in 4 out of the next 5 games, but then they are finished with the top 3 until the end of the regular season. That is interesting, and obviously as well will probably help MK because getting some of the lower end sides, it could be a blessing and it could be a curse. Because for MK, it's about getting ready to defend that playoff crown again, but also as well they're going to be playing teams. They'll be playing your Bristols, your Romfords, your Basingstokes, your Solways, the teams that are desperate and need to get results. And how will MK be able to react to that? Because as we've seen this so far this year, the mentality has not always been there, particularly on the road for the Lightning. And retro bits and pieces aside, and as I said, I know the MK fans love them. I'm not a huge fan of them. But nostalgia might be the best thing for MK right now, because obviously it's not been a very, very good year, and maybe tapping into some of that feeling might help them down the road. Ultimately, MK need to lock themselves in, or they won't even get back to Coventry to defend that title and get out the group stage if they continue sort of with the wild inconsistencies they've had so far. Of course, adding Mac Howlett back into the mix will no doubt help a great deal as well. However, like I say, MK need a spark of some description to kickstart things there. Basingstoke, I'm just hopeful. I still think Basingstoke can make the playoffs because I'm that deluded, same as everybody else. But such is the way of things. You can only do what you can do on that front. What we're going to do is we're going to go here, and what we're going to do from my end, just because there are a couple of bits and pieces that I should be able to do. Because what I think I should be able to do is I'm going to do... We're going to see if we can't work a bit of a trick and do something here. I'll do that. Because then if we go into, he says quickly trying to work out what he's doing with himself. Because we should be able to put Max's bits in here. Like I'm saying, the fact it's not worked is really, really irritating. But we should be able to make it work. If I do a quick bit of jiggery pokery here, what we'll do is we will delete that, and hopefully this should work again. We just skip our way back through, because you can't do it in multiple bits. There we go, it worked, yay! Cheating, 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 cheating. Either way, it's worked, brilliant, as we love Max Van Mullen. Of course, for those of you who aren't aware, Max, of course, play netminder for both the Romford Raiders and the Romford Buccaneers, but he makes our National Division fixture graphics. So here they are now on the screen. That's obviously tonight. Sheffield and Basingstoke ongoing, still 1-1 at Sheffield between those two sides. That's not worked at all. Why has that gone back to the beginning? That's really irritating. Why is it skipping around now? That's very, very frustrating. It's because it's trying to play as a slideshow. That is why it is doing that. There we go. This is awful. Sorry for you lot for all of that. There we go. Either way, there we go. We can see it there now. There is Saturday in the National Division. Finally got there in the end. Basingstoke versus Solway. Jamie asked earlier, is this game massive? Yes, huge playoff connotations on the line here. Of course, that game that was meant to be played in October that got cancelled when Solway were 30 minutes out is now going to be played on a Friday in March, which is great. But either way, that will be a huge one in the playoff race. Bristol versus Hull at the Pound in the southwest. Leeds versus Telford. Romford, Peterborough, Swindon, MK. That is going to be very, very interesting. Also interesting is I've just seen it there. Brendan Sellen, penalty shot. A man whose birthday it is today. And I've said that Basingstoke should sign him now. I think he's brilliant. Bison lead at Sheffield. But yeah, Swindon MK on Saturday at the Link Centre. If the Bison, if I didn't have bits and pieces to do and I was picking random games, I'd probably go and have a look at that one just to see how things are going. It's done it again. Oh, that's so irritating. You have to use this button instead because my buttons have now changed by the look of it. Really, really annoying. Let's go there, and then we go there, and then we go there. Sunday then, Hull versus Bristol. That could be very, very interesting up in Hull. MK versus Basingstoke. Don't worry, I have no illusions about how that one is going to go. It's Basingstoke and MK. We all know how that goes. Peterborough versus Leeds could be very, very, could have some interesting connotations. Solway versus Sheffield, and then Telford versus Swindon on Sunday in Shropshire. I really do like the look of that game, it should be said. There we go. Apologies. Thank you for bearing with us with the tech flub there. Really not sure what the hell happened, but we managed to fix it on the fly, so I'm quite impressed. And I managed to use the tech jiggery pokery that sends things directly between my phone and my computer, which is really, really nice. Also can see there, commentary tie things up in Glasgow. Jere Virtanen from Adam Robbins and Sam Ruffin. Should be said, if you look at the stats for Jere Virtanen, but coming into tonight, I think he had something ridiculous. Like he had 11 goals, of which like 7 or 8 were power play goals. So the fact he has scored even strength is the anomaly, it should be said. Very interesting team commentary. I really like Kevin Moore as a coach. And they play a really interesting style. Virtanen, for me, is positionally not a very good defenseman, but he seems to be able to shoot, and that sometimes that's all you need. But either way, Coventry back on level terms, having led 1-0 very early. They are now tied at 2 apiece in Glasgow with the Clan. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, do make sure to chuck other bits and pieces into the chat. Always like having you guys join in, and like I say, just making sure that not everything has completely gone to hell in a handbasket, and just checking some of the settings as we're talking. I think we are good. on that front. The tech appears to be working. Coventry now 3-2 in front. A power play goal, not from Jelle Vertinen, but he has assisted on it. Grant Mismash from Ruffin from Vertinen at 33.49. So that is 2 goals in 61 seconds for the Blaze to put them back in front against their hosts in Glasgow. What we will do, let's go and have a look at the NIHL, because for those of you not in the know, Division 1 and Division 2 this past weekend, it has been, mostly, bar one game, Cup semi-final weekend, and some huge results. What we'll do is we will use the box scores from the fantastic Joe Scutts at nihlstats.wordpress.com. Do make sure you check out Joe's bits and pieces if you haven't done. All of the stats for everything across the NIHL, including these little gems every week, to give you a proper in-depth roundup on things in Division 1 and Division 2. 4-2 Coventry. They can't stop scoring. That is 2 goals in just over, in sort of 2 minutes and 13 seconds. The defence clearly going well. You know the old adage here at BOTW, why defend when you cannot defend? Either way, North 1. And the first semi-final between the league-leading Blackburn Hawks, miles away at the top of the table, and the D-side Dragons. Hawks come out of D-side with the 4-2 victory in this one. Because this is the semi-finals and technically separate of everything else, that is why all the goals have reset. Don't worry, Jake Witkowski hasn't forgotten how to score. D-side were ahead at home at the end of the first before a 4-goal outburst from the Hawks. Jakob Hayek, Dylan Hullaby, Adam Barnes and Andy McKinney had the Hawks 4-1 to the good. Matt Barlow gets the last word for D-side, but it was a 2-goal deficit to overhaul for the Dragons heading into the second leg. Elsewhere, there's other semi-finals. Solihull and Telford, the Midlands Derby in North 1, and a win on the Saturday night for the Barons at Hobbsmoat Road. Ahead early were the Barons 3-0 to the good at the end of the first period through Lucas Price, Nicholas Otterson and Corey Goodison. Telford to get themselves back into it, pulled it back to 3-2. Dan Harrison and Taylor Stanton making it 3-2 just before the 31-minute mark. Henry Adams making it 4-2, and Vladimir Luka, because Vladimir Luka always scores, making it 4-3 going into the dying embers. Lucas Price with his second goal of the game, making it 5-3 Solihull at half time in the tie. And then, well, you haven't read wrong. The D-side found a way not only to beat Blackburn in Blackburn, but they managed to stifle and shut down the Hawks' offence. Bobby Streetley scored the first goal of the game at 31:08 to put Blackburn a little bit further in front in the tie. But then goals from the big usual suspects for the Dragons: Jake Witkowski, Matt Barlow, and then a goal at 55 minutes from Colin Cromie, levelling the tie on aggregate, and then taking it into overtime. And then Reece Edwards sets up Matt Barlow for his 4th goal of the weekend. The Dragons go through, the Hawks are out, and their dreams of their Grand Slam are in the dust in the middle of January as D-side make it to the final of the North 1 Cup for the first time. And as you can see as well, Tyler Delapetouche facing over 60 shots over the course of the weekend, but certainly taking the plaudits. A big performance as well from Harrison Walker, making 38 saves, just not enough at the death. And then as you can see there as well, not only Solihull won at home on Saturday night, but a big performance at home from that man again. Not just a natural hat-trick from Vladimir Luka. He scores 4 goals on the bounce at the end. 7-4 Telford on the night. They beat Solihull 10-9 on aggregate, and we have what is probably a final that, if you'd put money on it at the beginning of the season in North 1, people might have been giving you a breathalyzer test just to make sure. It is D-side and Telford for the North 1 Cup come the middle of February. Phil Mulcahy putting the Barons in front, answered by Kyle Ferguson. Lucas Price scored, answered by Taylor Stanton. Dan Mulcahy scored, answered by Matt Maurice, of course, former Solihull Baron, who moved across to Telford. Solihull back in front through Nicholas Otterson, but Vladimir Luka decided, I want another crack at some silverware. That goal to get them tying the tie up at 9 apiece at 47-41 before the 53:09 game-winning power play goal from Vlad Luka gets the Tigers the win, and they head to the Cup final in February. The first leg will be in Telford, the second leg will be in Deeside. Upcoming this weekend in North 1, everybody else back to action. Hull take on Leeds, that's 5:30 p.m. at the World's Most Versatile Arena on Saturday. Blackburn and Solihull, the two losing semi-finalists, will meet in Lancashire at 6 p.m. and at 7:20 p.m. at Ice Sheffield. The Scimitars and the Wild will do battle towards the lower end of the North 1 table. 4 games on Sunday. Deeside take on the Sheffield Scimitars. The Scimitars still looking for anything at all. Billingham back to action, of course, against the Widnes Wild. That should be a very interesting game. Nottingham versus Telford at 5:30 on the small pad at the NIC. And Solihull take on Hull at Hogsmeade Road. That is at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. Into South 1, the only place where there was an extra game anywhere, but in the Cup semi-final it was Solent and it was Slough, just like last year. Solent nudged their way past Slough in the 24-25 Cup, but it started better for the Jets on Saturday down in Gosport. Lewis English with the early go-ahead goal, but level at the end of the first as Liam Coleman tied things up. But a goal in the second from Christian Moore, and then goals in the third from Dylan Hilliker and Kyle Bradburn meant the Jets headed into the second leg with a 4-1 advantage. The only league game of the weekend in South 1 was down at the Sapphire, a game that needed to be played to fill out the fixtures. Like I say, this weekend was reserved for the Cup, but the Buccaneers and the Fire taking the opportunity to play each other. And it was a big win for the Bucks, 8-1 over Cardiff. The Buccaneers 5-0 to the Good by the end of the first period. Alfie Stone getting the goal for Cardiff to take a little bit of gloss on it, but gloss off of things. But late goals from the Buccaneers pushed them well beyond their opponents. 2 goals from Shea Woolmore, goals as well from Tom Wilson, Artyom Kazaks and Alan Kafazov, and a hat-trick on the night for Joe Tomlin. Our boy Max makes 22 saves on the night. Gemma Davies faces the full 60 minutes and makes 38 saves. The other Cup semi-final then was between, well, 2 teams that you probably, like I say, felt a little bit lopsided in terms of how things have gone. But Swindon have made a good showing this year, and they kept things close on the high road on Saturday. 3-1 Streatham win, which gave Swindon a puncher's chance, taking the tie back home on the Sunday. Streatham opting to play the semi-final at home first due to ice time availability. Ben Painter and Jared Lane scoring within about 90 seconds of each other to make it 2-0 in the first. Jan Kostel Sr. got the Wildcats on the board early in the second, but Luke Brittle made it 3-1, and then a close, tight game kept things going, which meant that, like I say, Swindon had a puncher's chance heading into Sunday. Well, the Devils had a chance coming into the Sunday. They were not given any quarter by the league champion and National Division 1 champion Slough Jets. Jets 5, Devils 1, a 9-2 aggregate win for Lucas Smithel's side. And ultimately, the Devils just not having enough on the day. The Devils goal coming late from Liam Coleman. Otherwise, goals from Kyle Bradburn, Brandon Miles, Seb Moore, Lewis English and Ollie Hemmings-Marr were enough to see Slough comfortably into the final, where they will play the Streatham Redhawks, who rocked up to Swindon and were not in any kind of giving mood. A big 6-0 win to put the Wildcats out of the Cup at the semi-final stage. Pretty impressive from the Wildcats to make it through the group stage, but ultimately just not strong enough to take things away from Streatham. 2 goals from Ryan Watt and goals as well from Roman Cathcart, Sam Waller, Ethan Lane and Luke Brittle. It was a 19-shot shutout for Brett Shepherd. This upcoming weekend then in South 1, 3 games on the Saturday, 5 p.m. down in Gosport. The 2 losing semi-finalists from the Cup will meet in the league. Solent take on Swindon 2. 5:30 on the high road, and something a bit of what should be a bit of a different game for Streatham. They take on the Cardiff Fire in the Battle of the Capitals. 6:30 p.m. at the Hangar should be a tasty one between the Slough Jets and the Invicta Dynamos. On Sunday, 1 game in the Challenge Cup, that's the extra cup competition, that's down in Kent between Invicta and Streatham. Elsewhere in the league, Romford take on Solent, Swindon take on Chelmsford, Cardiff take on Slough off the back of the last time these 2 teams faced. Cardiff lost to Slough by 18 goals to 0. In North 2, just the 1 semi-final being played. This is all down to the fact that unfortunately Sutton Sutton and Sheffield Titans could not get ice time. Sheffield being used this weekend for the European Ice Skating Championships, meaning there is no ice time. That will be played this coming weekend. I'm led to believe Saturday's first leg is being streamed, though I've not seen any confirmation from the clubs themselves. Just looking elsewhere as well, Sheffield have tied things up against the Bison. Bear Gendenov again on the score sheet with a power play goal. Gendenov from Sommer from Cole Shudra at 33-48. Coventry 4-2 up at the end of the second period in Glasgow. But yes, so the one semi-final played in North 2 between the Coventry NHL Blaze and the Billingham Buccaneers. The Blaze at home for Saturday night, and they left it late, but they did get their noses in the front. Daniel Capel having Billingham in front after just 14 seconds, but level at the end of the first period. A late goal, just 6 seconds from the first buzzer from Nick Alley. Josh Nertney putting the Buccaneers back in front with just under 12 minutes to go before Ruben Sweeney-Fuller tied the game up, and then a goal 30 seconds from time from Charles Coney put the Blaze in the driver's seat heading into that second leg at the Forum. But the Buccaneers are a pretty formidable opponent across Division 2 this year, none more so than at home, and it is they who will take the place. They are the ones waiting on either Sutton or Sheffield for the North 2 Cup final. A 4-1 win for the Buccaneers over the Blaze sees them win by 6-4 in aggregate. 2 goals from Sam Dowd and a goal each from Josh Nertney and Michael Plant. Harrison Sumner made it 2-1 just before the end of the first period, but goals in the second period making it 4-1, and the Buccaneers managed the situation out and get themselves into the North 2 Cup final. This upcoming weekend then, just the not much in terms of what's going on, but they do appear to, like I say, from my understanding, that they've managed at least to try and get both ties this weekend. So we'll see what happens here, because Coventry versus Sheffield is listed there. Sheffield versus Sutton on Sunday. Let us just quickly double check. 2-2 between the Steel Dogs and the Bison, end of second, which for the Bison perspective, I think is pretty good going, all things considered. Let's just double check this and make sure I've not read this wrong. No, they have indeed managed to shuffle things around. So that game on the Saturday, that game between the Blaze and the Titans will be rearranged. Saturday, Sutton versus Sheffield first leg. Sunday, as it says there, Sheffield versus Sutton at 5:10. We will catch you up. So it's a 4:50 face-off on Saturday, Sheffield, and 5:10 face-off on Sunday, Sheffield versus Sutton, for the second leg of the North 2 Cup final. So by the end of this weekend, we will know who the Buccaneers will face for the North 2 Cup. I've gone too far there. Well, in South 2, we know that the second leg between Invicta and Guildford is being played on the 31st of January due to ice availability in Guildford. The first leg, well, something happened between Peterborough and Haringey. There's certainly a 5-4 win for the Phantoms, but no one has sent in the game sheet for Joe to update his things. So there's my message to you, Peterborough. Sort that out, please. Either way, a narrow advantage. The Huskies running Peterborough close in Peterborough, and knowing that Peterborough keep their unbeaten streak in the league alive. In the first leg of the semi-final, though, between our friends the Invicta Mustangs, of course, the creators of BOTW Rule 2, which is never count out the Invicta Mustangs, but a pretty impressive performance from the Phoenix, who put themselves in a commanding position heading into that second leg. Jared Vigar, Monty Gaylor and Sean Reynolds all on the board. Sam Oliver with the goal for the Mustangs, but it's Guildford with the 2-goal advantage heading into that second leg. Although, as you can see there, pretty impressive performance in net from Oscar Minton, a 48 save performance from the 16-year-old, as he helps the Phoenix to a first leg victory over the Mustangs. And then in the second leg, well, again, it was pretty close, and another pretty solid performance from the Huskies, but just not enough. Peterborough win again, still undefeated in all competitions across NIHL 2 South this year. A 5-4 victory at Alexandra Palace, a 10-8 aggregate win for the Phantoms 2 sees them into the cup final, where they will wait on either Guildford or Guildford or Invicta. Martin Shaz, Ruskin, Springer Hughes, and 2 goals from William Novick for the Huskies. Goals for the Phantoms, a hat-trick for Louis Kinniston, and 2 goals for Connor Pollard. As you can see, including a late goal from Kinniston to get his hat-trick being an empty netter. A 50-save performance in net from Dylan Phillips for the Huskies. 36 saves on the board for Luke Clark. Action again in South 2, then back to things. The Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup back underway this weekend as well. Haringey take on Chelmsford on Saturday. Slough take on Lee Valley on Sunday. Elsewhere in the league, Saturday, Lee Valley versus Cardiff in another battle of the capitals. Peterborough back to league action. They take on Slough, who've sprung a few surprises this season. Can the Spitfires be the first trip up on the way on Peterborough's march to the league title? And it's 7 p.m. at the Thunderdome. MK Thunder against the Solent Junior Devils. League games on Sunday. Bristol take on MK and Chelmsford take on Guildford. Those are both 5:30 face-offs. Apologies, just need to manage to nearly choke on my own saliva. Always a good start, choking on your own show. Just have a quick swig of the German-based lubricant system. But either way, like I say, yeah, 2-2 in Sheffield between the Bison and the Steel Dogs. You have to think from a Basingstoke perspective against a Sheffield team like this, get out with a point and try and just work out the rest of the weekend from there, because you have to think the focus has to be on tomorrow and beating Solway in their first ever, now finally, visit to Basingstoke. So it should be an interesting one, that one. I mean, certainly the temptation is to go, but family time, I think, taking precedence tomorrow with my bits and pieces to do on Sunday. Either way, still a fair bit of hockey left to talk about, which we will click some buttons and try and get ourselves to, which is mostly in our friends from the Scottish National League. Of course, big thanks to Connor over at SNL Ice Hockey Updates. Make sure to follow them on Facebook. And, well, our friends Kilmarnock. Edinburgh got more fans in the building for this than Fife and Dundee got over the course on Sunday, which tells you something about how big a ticket hockey is in Edinburgh. And a winning team will get fans irrespective of the level. Capitals win by 12 goals to 0. Elsewhere on Saturday, Dundee, the current league champions, of course, not going down without a fight, and they get themselves some points on the road in Kirkcaldy against the Kestrels. Rockets win by 4 goals to 1, and then a real ding-dong battle from the reports, but one that the hosts end up winning. Aberdeen Lynx beating the Paisley Pirates by 4 goals to 3 on Saturday up in Aberdeen. Just the one game in the SNL on Sunday, and it was a pretty comfortable win at Hillheads for the Whitley Warriors, the most southern team in Scotland, beating the North Ayrshire Wild by 7 goals to 0. That means the table in the SNL at the moment looks like this. The Capitals, with their massive win and their huge goal difference of plus 72, given the fact they've only conceded 35 goals all season, which is still pretty impressive, are still in a commanding position at the top of the table. They only lead Whitley by a point, and they are 2 points clear of Dundee, but they do have 4 games in hand on the Warriors and a game in hand on the Rockets, whose good run of form, as you can see there, the Rockets, the form team in the league at the moment, 6 wins on the spin for John Dolan and Dundee, but the Capitals still in a commanding position at the moment. Paisley in 4th, Kirkcaldy in 5th, Aberdeen, followed by Aberdeen, Widnes and Solway in terms of the playoffs. Kilmarnock, of course, bless our friends, at the bottom there on a round goal difference of minus 200, still in the Goose Egg Club, 0-19. Fixtures upcoming then this weekend for the in the SNL. Oh, he says pressing buttons and losing things. A couple of games, just 3 games on Saturday. Solway will welcome Aberdeen to the Dumfries Ice Bowl. North Ayr, well, they got quite handily dispatched by Edinburgh over the New Year period. As Edinburgh head their way to let's try this one. Okanavi. There we go. They head to North Ayr to take on the Capitals head to North Ayr to take on the Wild, and then elsewhere on Saturday, can Dundee get anything out of the Rockets as they head to Dundee? Probably not, but the hope springs eternal. It is a two game weekend for the Rockets. On Sunday, they head to the Braehead Arena to take on the Pirates, and Aberdeen will make the long trip down to Whitley Bay on Sunday at the Hillheads. Warriors Lynx. That's a 5 p.m. face-off at Whitley Bay. And then we will take a quick squiz. Actually, what's that question from Jamie there? Who's the best fit to be the 12th team in the National League, hopefully for next season? Edinburgh, Blackburn or Slough? I personally think it will be one of the first two, if any. I'm not sure there is actually going to be one in there, but these things can turn very, very quickly. And for me, like I said, the issue with Slough is a bunch of factors, including like what extra Brits do they bring in, what Brits move on, but to make space for some of the imports that they will need to bring in, because of course Slough are a zero import team at the moment in South One. They would need imports to be able to compete. They have been, like I say, the reporting I've done is they've been rejected from the national division on the basis of wanting to run zero imports before. So we will see what happens there. Edinburgh and Blackburn for me feel the more likely. I am not 100% certain either do join. If you're Edinburgh, the amount of extra you'd be paying when you are pretty much onto a big winner at the moment feels like a bad idea at the moment. Blackburn, there's a chance, but I'm not 100% certain. It could be someone completely different for all you know, or no one at all. Because for all of its foibles, the 11 teams do seem to work. Either way, what we need to do is very, very quickly pull up the notes that Andrew's given us as we look at the WNIHL from the past little while. Just the one game in the Elite League that was played last Sunday, and a big win for the reigning champions Solihull Vixens. They beat the Streatham Storm by 7-2. Jodie Alderson Smith and Robin Mullen with 2 goals apiece. The other goals for the Vixens coming from Katie Henry, Peyton Fincher and Alicia Potts. Goals for the Storm coming from Andrea Lamb and Rachel Hathorn. That means that the table at the moment in the WNHL Elite League looks like this. Solihull, with that win, get themselves into a good position, just 1 point back of Whitley Bay with a game in hand. But the Queen Bees have 2 games in hand on the Vixens and 3 games in hand on the Beacons. They are just 2 points back of first. Streatham, well, it would have the win would have been nice. Guildford are sort of sat in a little bit of a space by themselves in the middle of the table there. Ultimately for Streatham, it's just keep themselves clear of Bristol at the bottom of the table. Looking at the WNIHL set up at the moment, in North 1, a bit solid win for the Solway Sharks ladies. They beat the Widnes Wild by 8-3. 4 goals from Emily Duffy and a hat-trick from Cassie McGregor for the Sharks. Molly Walker with the other goal there for the side from Dumfries. The Wilds goals, 2 from Taylor Huxley Richards and 1 from Maggie Whitmore. At the moment, in terms of North 1, the Kingston Diamonds top on 19 points. Steel Queens have 15, and then it's rolled down to Sheffield, Nottingham, Solway, and then Widnes at the bottom. They have 0 points so far this season. In South 2, as you can see there, a pretty solid win, and of course Dave will be a very happy man. A 17-2 win for the Cambridge Kodiaks over the Streatham Storm. The Streatham Storm 2. Stratham's goals coming from Rachel Hathorn and Molly Meggans. I will take a deep breath. Goals for the Kodiaks. 3 from Josie Milton, 3 from Christina Ashley, 3 from Chloe Carter, 3 from Scarlett Shelton, 2 from Julia Mabry, and goals from Alicia Anderson, Sarah Carvenan, and Florence Southwood. The game on Sunday, a 4-0 shutout win away from home for the Chelmsford Cobras. They beat the MK Falcons by 4-0. Tilly Howe with 2 goals, Leonie Charles and Teresa Plankova with the other goals for the Cobras. In South 1, Top Cats lead the way at the moment. They have 18 points. Firebees on 14. Cambridge and Chelmsford both on 10. MK and Streatham Storm 2 both on 0 points. That means one of those sides at some point is going to get their first win of the season. North 2 Valerie, and as you can see, a very, very close and tight fought game between the Leeds Racers and the Blackburn Hawks, but the win goes to Yorkshire. It is a 9-8 final score with the Roses getting the win. CJ Harrison and Libby Foster both with hat-tricks. Taylor Simmons with 2 goals and the other goal coming from Claire Rankin. Blackburn's goals, 2 from Catherine Fairclough, 2 from Preston Jeno, and goals as well from Ruth Leopold and Rachel Pearce. There are 2 other goals scored in that game. Andrew was unable to find me the scorers, but we will let him off on that one. North 2 Valerie at the moment. Beacons 2 lead the way. They have 18 points. Roses on 14. Kingston Diamonds on 10. Blackburn on 10. Sheffield Shadows 2 on 4 points. And Telford Wrekin Raiders bottom of the table in North 2 Valerie. They have 0 points on the season so far. No games played in South 2 Valerie. And no games played in North 2 Elizabeth, but there are a couple of games you can see that in South 2 Elizabeth, and a pretty close one at the Lee Valley Ice Arena. The Vampires beat the Phoenix by a 0-0. Frederick Houston with the lone goal gives Lee Valley the all-important win. Not much of a close game else down in Kent, though, as the Invicta Dynamics beat the Vampires the following day by 15 goals to 2. We don't have a record of the Vampires goal scorers. Invicta, though, are 9 wins from 9 so far in South Elizabeth. A 6-goal performance from Lucy Mewett, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. Chelsea Meany with 4, Charlotte Davenport Jeffrey with 3, and the other goals coming from Lara Podstavska and Amanda Q. The Dynamics, as we say, perfect. 9 from 9, 18 points, followed by Coventry, Lee Valley and MK Falcons 2 are both on 10 points. Bristol Huskies 2 are on 4 points. Kodiaks 2 are on 0 at the moment. And then the one game from the under-16s North division. We don't have the scorers for this one, but as you can see, a pretty lopsided game in Kingston as the Kingston Diamonds lose by 13 goals to 2 at home against the Manchester Storm. Whitley Bay Beacons under-16s lead the Northern Division. They have 8 from 8 so far. D-side are in second. Their only loss this season has been against Whitley Bay. So we head into the fixtures this coming weekend. In the Elite League, it's the local derby in Slough. Queen Bees versus the Guildford Lightning at 1:15. Solihull take on Bristol. That is a 6:55 face-off at Hobbs Moat Road on Saturday. And then into the rest of the WNIHL. In the north, on 2 games on Sunday, Caledonia versus Solway in the Scottish Derby. That's a 7:30 p.m. face-off up there. And Widnes take on Nottingham at 4:25. In the south, Streatham Storm 2 versus the MK Falcons at 6:45 down on the High Road. And a 1:10 face-off in Swindon at the Link Centre between the Top Cats and the Kodiaks. North 2 Valerie, Telford looking for some points on Saturday evening as they take on Kingston Diamonds 2. Blackburn take on Leeds in the reverse of the previous week. Will we get as many goals as last time? Remains to be seen. Sheffield take on Whitley Bay. That's a 4:40 face-off on Sunday at Ice Sheffield. And then North 2 Elizabeth, Leeds Thorns versus Manchester Storm is a 4 p.m. face-off in North 2 Elizabeth. South 2 Valerie, Oxford take on Haringey at the Oxpens at 4:40. Cardiff versus Chelmsford and Solent versus Slough in a good local set 2 down on the south coast on Sunday. Saturday, the lone game in South 2 Elizabeth. Invicta take on MK Falcons 2 in Kent and Gillingham at 6:30. And then in the under-16s North, 2 games this weekend, both on Sunday, midday face-off at the small pad for Nottingham versus Billingham, and Sheffield take on Whitley Bay at Ice Sheffield. That is a 3 p.m. face-off on Sunday. And that means we have done the lot. Every division, every game played across every division, both male and female, over the last week and a bit, has been taken care of across all of British hockey. And that means, as we are just approaching 9:15, we open the door. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chat about. It's now an open book. We will talk about anything and everything to wrap out our Friday and then do the bits and pieces as we head into another weekend of hockey. What's Dave said here? Edinburgh would at least bring the fan numbers, whereas Slough would struggle to afford it with the long distance travel and housing cost in the south of 5 imports. Yeah, as we all seem to be pretty convinced on that. It was a great performance. Kodiaks were playing their best. However, Streatham turned up with barely 2 lines. Makes one wonder why they couldn't pull players from their other teams. Question to be asked, and like I say, clearly, clearly getting the numbers a bit of a struggle there for Storm 2, but obviously trying to give opportunities for people to be able to play where Elite League hockey might just be either not for them right now or just a step too far. So. like I say, it's not a great beer, but it's a good enough beer, and that's kind of just what I want at the end of a long week, it should be said. I have discovered hockey bits and pieces. The one thing I should say, fans of Shawsey, we do not know. We do not have an immediate release date for Shawsey season 5. That of course came out on Christmas Day, over in Canada on Crave. But having had a quick squiz at bits and things, should you have a VPN, it's on SBS in Australia. And you can sign up to their website for free to watch bits and pieces. So that might be getting done at some point over the next couple of days for me, to watch a bit of season 5 of Shawsey before it comes on to ITVX, which I don't like ITVX. Its user interface is appalling. If you're a fan of Shawsey, that's the way to go on that one. Not watched Heated Rivalry. Not massively interested to. Not a big fan of romance as a genre. If you've not read Zach Sullivan's thoughts on Heated Rivalry as a series, very interesting perspective. Of course, Zach, one of the few openly outplaying players in the world, and certainly the first in Britain to do so. But certainly certainly has some very interesting thoughts there over on his Instagram. Do go check those out if you're interested. Heated Rivalry doesn't appeal to me. I'm not a big fan of romance and that kind of thing. It's not a case of for me, the fact that they've got some sort of representation of a series sort of putting LGBTQIA bits and pieces to the forefront in hockey, not an issue for me. I'm just not that big fan of romance bits and pieces. I've been married for 15 years. All of my romance is here. I'm not really looking for it in my literature or my art per se. So if you want to go watch it, you do you. It's a beer. I'm sure my Heineken Zero barely qualifies. I've still got half a crate of Peroni Zero that I got from Costco before Christmas Day. Panic ye not, my good man. I will probably grab one of those tomorrow night because I'm out at the moment, and I'm also nearly out of coffee beans as well, so I need to do a coffee run at some stage as well. I should say though, what I did get over Christmas was somebody got me a tub from Canada of the Tim Hortons French vanilla cappuccino powder. So that gets mixed up with some oat milk to just be one of the best things ever. Am I getting diabetes? 99% sure at some stage at some stage probably. But it is certainly doing it with the oat milk, and certainly the Sainsbury's barista oat milk, which is a little bit thicker, has been really, really good. But it's certainly decent. Third period underway at Ice Sheffield. Can the Bison pull out a surprise win against a very, very good Steel Dogs side? He says immediately clicks the thing, and the Bison are on the penalty kill again because Wolfstead has slashed somebody. That's great. The other thing, of course, to talk about, because it's very much a thing, but the NHL on ITV4. Very, very good news for hockey fans, I think, just being able to kind of access the sport in a bit of an easier way. Yeah, sure, it's like one game every couple of days, but the NHL have given ITV4 the rights till at least the end of this season. So it's good the fact that it's on there. For me, if they're showing the Caps live, I will definitely watch. I think the game being on Sunday is just at a bad time for me because of course I got work to do on Sunday, but I might watch some bits and catch up just to bump the numbers. I've got time to kill over the next few days. My sister says Heated Rivalry is really good, but I'm with you. Not really after romance with my ice hockey. She and my daughter did crush the 3 Mighty Ducks movies, and apparently there is 2 seasons of a Mighty Ducks series. There is. I watched most of series 1 and just didn't get on with it. Oh, what a surprise! What a surprise! Sheffield scored on the power play. Great. Carl Watson from Jonathan Kirk from Ivan Bjerkli Nordstrom. I'll forgive you for not using the umlauts, Jamie, because it's hard to find on a keyboard. But yes, either way, the Bison now having to come from behind. Just get a point, boys. I can live with a point. Let's get a point. Do that. But yes, the Mighty Duck series I didn't get on with. I know some people who really like it. I didn't, personally. The 2 things, though, apparently coming to Netflix, there is, and it's confirmed because it's coming out next Friday, so a week today, is the Netflix documentary series on the Miracle on Ice that's been... has some bits and pieces coming about it. So, of course, for those of you unfamiliar, the Miracle on Ice, the United States beating the Soviet Union in the 1980 Lake Placid Winter Olympics, which was at the time a massive, massive surprise. The United States team at the time in the Olympics, no professional players, and the Soviet Union were about as amateur, about as amateur as a professional soldier in that sense. They were all technically in the army, which is how they got away with essentially putting professionals into it, but not. But either way, a win for the US was for a team that was made up entirely of university players. Was not it was a huge, huge surprise. Here it is. There we are. Miracle. The Boys of 80 coming to Netflix on the 30th of January. A young hockey team enters the 1980 Olympics as underdogs and emerges as heroes. Their iconic upset unfolds with new footage and first-hand reflections. It's a 1 hour 40-minute documentary. It says so. That should be pretty interesting. It's a sort of a sports documentary that my wife, as a former film student, really, really enjoys as well. There was as well some news that there was potentially a Toronto Maple Leafs documentary as well. So we will see whether that actually comes out or not. Because there was a bunch of talk about it happening, that Netflix will be doing a documentary sort of about the Maple Leafs and their history in bits and pieces. So the Netflix has revealed upcoming release of an exclusive documentary dedicated to the Toronto Maple Leafs, titled "The Maple Leafs Legacy Beyond the Ice." So it will look a fair bit at the history of the Leafs, which, if you're not familiar, is bonkers. The history of the Maple Leafs, whether you like the Leafs or not as a club, their history is really, really storied. I'm just going to look in my hockey books because I will have it somewhere. Because if you like your Maple Leafs history, or you like hockey history in general, I really, really recommend this book here, The Lives of Conn Smythe, From the Battlefield to Maple Leaf Gardens, a Hockey Icon Story by Kelly McParlin. Excellent book. Really, really good. I also would recommend an article based on some of the bit that's in that book, but also on some of my own research I did, called Back to War, because which kind of charts the path of Conn Smythe and a chap called Dr. William Russell, who was a pioneer of combat medicine, originally from Montreal, and both of those men at one point ended up in Basingstoke at the former Canadian Military Hospital in World War II. That's on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. So go and check those out. But certainly that book by Kelly McParland is really, really good. He's just quickly looking at his other hockey books. The other one I would drastically recommend, and of course he has passed away. I'm just trying to remember where it is. If we are talking hockey books, Ken Dryden passed away back in September of last year. Certainly one of my favourites, but certainly another really, really important book that has altered my kind of views a little bit on bits and pieces. This one by Ken Dryden, Game Change: The Life and Death of Steve Montador and the Future of Hockey, talking about sort of the impact of hits to the head and stuff. I would really, really recommend that one too. The other one that I really, really enjoyed. I mean, I enjoy all of Ken Dryden's books. I'd recommend anything by Ken Dryden. The other one that I actually really, really like that isn't quite as readily available, just because it's very, very behind the scenes player, and it is a bit old now, but it's still very, very interesting, is This Is Russia by Bernd Bruckler, Austrian netminder who's played all over the place, but it talks about his time in the KHL. This is Russia, life in the KHL, doctors, bazaars, and millions of air miles. It's not for everybody, but it's also not the longest book in the world. It is, so skipping forward, it's only about 245 pages, but it's also, as you can see, not physically the biggest book in the world. I keep turning this the wrong way, but that's also a good one if you like your hockey literature as well. I nearly grabbed out one of my German books by mistake. The other one, he says, quickly looking, just to double check he's not put it in the wrong place, just because obviously we're running out of space in the library at the Mo. The other one, and like I say, if you're wanting a book at all, if you haven't read any hockey books of any description, then you do need to go back and you do need to read the seminal book itself, which is Ken Dryden's The Game, writing about his final season playing for the Montreal Canadiens. It is the perennial hockey book. I pick it up and put it down every so often. I'm probably going to take it to Belfast next week. I'm not, although I've got a bunch of books I do need to read, but it's a nice easy one to kind of pick up and put down, and it is like I say, it is arguably even still now one of the finest hockey books ever written. But yeah, so next week we'll be back on Wednesday is the plan. And then next Friday, the 30th, I fly to Belfast. I'll be in Belfast for the Giants versus the Coventry Blaze at the SSE. My plan is to try and do a chunk of stuff in a couple of days in Belfast. So I'm going to the Titanic exhibition. I'm planning to go to a game of football, most likely Linfield versus Ballymena, and then I have tickets for the rugby in the evening between Ulster and Cardiff, which my mum's parents, one is from Cardiff and the other one is from Northern Ireland. So I figured that Ulster versus Cardiff, whilst I was in Belfast, was a bit too much of a thing to. I was like, I feel like I should lean into that ever so slightly, and also like the opportunity to see a bunch of different sport and kind of meet a bunch of different people. And see friends I've got over there as well, Giants fans and the like, but also kind of check out and do some other bits and pieces. I've even downloaded like an audio walking tour app to walk myself around when I get, because I have some time to kill, so I'm going to do that too, and just enjoy myself and just have my sort of weekend. This is my excursion. So where in the 23-24 season, ended up in Berlin, went and saw Fast Berlin versus Dresden alongside some football. 24-25, I ended up in Bristol and Deeside. Now 25-26, obviously a very different year with me doing the commentary, but picked out a weekend and I will head over the water over the Irish Sea, because if nothing else, I can fly return for about £95 from Southampton to Belfast, which is really, really helpful. It's nice to be able to not have to drive to either Gatwick, because when I went to Berlin, I flew to Gatwick I flew from Gatwick at 6:40 in the morning to Berlin, which was fine by myself. Getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, not a fan of that at all. Slept on the plane on the way out. Max Stewart scores for Coventry. 5-2 blazing Glasgow against the Clan. But yes, I would like the whole. I say it a lot, and obviously like it's a bit moot this year with the commentary thing, because the commentary thing just limits where I can go. But if you get the opportunity to go and travel and see hockey in different places, definitely do it. Mini disco. That's one way to describe it. But yes, either way, great for Max Stewart. Been very impressed with him this year. But yeah, if you get the opportunity, just take a weekend and just go watch hockey in a different place. And I tell you what, the fact that the last couple of years, like last year and this year, to do it in different places in Britain has been really good as well. Like obviously, I love going to Berlin. Actually, as a family, in July we're going to Berlin as a family holiday. But going and watching hockey in different places in Britain, and not as an away fan, going outside of like watching your team is really good, because like Guildford next week are in Scotland. They've got Dundee and they've got Fife, and like I thought about going, but the logistics, it would have been driving the entire time and I just wasn't in the mood for that, and I also would have been coming back. It would have been a long drive back from Scotland, which I don't mind doing, but the opportunity to go and do something in a slightly different place, and like I say, being able to go, not having to take the car, being able to fly, and Belfast is quite a compact city, being able to do that felt like a good idea, something different. I've been through Belfast because to go to family bits and pieces over in Northern Ireland, but I've never done Belfast, so why not? I've got a few friends over there, got the boys from Door 14 Hockey I'm going to be trying to catch up with, a few other people might be coming over as well, try and catch up with other people that I know over there, so try and just make a weekend of it, and like I say, if nothing else, I've got the week off work, so I will be in a hopefully in a bit of a calmer spot next week, and also as well from a voice perspective, the voice needs a little bit of a rest commentary wise, I think, so we'll see how I manage after Sunday, albeit I can't really complain. Jono did 5 games in 3 days, so he did pass off the 6th game at the Continental Cup to Dylan Pick. Delighted for Dylan as well, really 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 polite young man who's really dedicated to try and do better. Love travelling. This season I've gone D-side and Invicta, Jets, Panthers and Blaze. Neutral ice hockey is great, stress-free. It's just really great as well to see things in different places, get a bit of a different experience as well. The one place I want to go back to and watch hockey, because I've not gone there for so long, I want to go back to the Netherlands, because I've watched a game in Amsterdam before. Jaap Edenbaan is a really, really interesting rink. And the structure has changed drastically since I was over there. So I'd be really interested to see it. I want to go to some different countries as well. I've not gone to Czechia for hockey. I've not gone to Slovakia for hockey. Part of me wants to quite go and watch something from like the Alps Liga, or go watch the Ice Liga in a different place that isn't Vienna. But again, it's kind of funny places. Also as well, I want to go to Billingham. I want to go to Billingham and see the guys up there. I want to go get a Parmo in the Merlin. But Billingham plays so few games on Saturday. That's a real ball ache to kind of fight to make the dates didn't match up this year. I'll be looking frantically during the summer when the fixtures come out to try and line up when I can go and if I can go. Otherwise, it'll be a case of like looking around for other bits and pieces. But yeah, like traveling is great, and like I say, if you haven't got the money, please don't do stupid stuff with your money. Spend the money on the things you need to spend the money on. But if you've got the money spare, or you want to save up, go watch the NHL. Go watch the AHL. Go watch the ECHL. Like go see hockey abroad. Go watch the League actually the League Magnus. I've never watched hockey in France. Like I've barely been to France, and my in-laws both speak French fluently. I did look at going, but I would have ended up in the middle of nowhere, and I don't speak French. So like. But like going and watching hockey in France would be really, really cool if I got the opportunity, and I can fly to places from Southampton that go a multitude of places in France, or I could take the car. Maybe I could drive. There's teams in the north. Like Amiens not a billion miles away from the ferry. If I wanted to go there, for example, and I've commentated on Le Gothique, so that'd be quite interesting. Like go back to Sweden. I know Andrew, of course, who's regularly in the chat and helps us with the WNHL bits. Big fan of the SHL. Big fan of the SDHL as well, the Women's League. So that'd be really, really cool. Love watching the Division 1 playoff finals at Coventry weekend. Always so relaxing watching some players that can make the step up to the national. Yes, it's the big scouting report for everybody. Also, it's like I say, I will always hold a bit of affinity for that game because, of course, 2023 National Division 1 final, Solway versus Streatham 2, is my first ever game of commentary. That will always be it. Like, and you think as well, 2023, there was that 6-month period where I went from the NHL 1, where I commentated on NHL 1, National Division, and Elite League in the space of about 6 months, having never commentated before. So that game will always hold something special for me. And certainly the fact I got to do it last year, yes, it was a bit of a blowout and Slough were just way too good for Billingham on the day. But getting to do that alongside Joe as well, who if you don't know, Scotsy and I have known each other for well over a decade. And he came with me to the Cardiff game as well and sort of sat in the crowd. So being able to break it down with somebody afterwards was just fantastic. Joe's got such good mind for it and is like I said, one of my oldest friends in the sport, so it's just really awesome to do that alongside him. Should be going Billingham in a week. Has never been on the way back from seeing the Queen Bees at Whitley Bay. Brilliant! That's so good to hear, Andrew, as well. Make sure, like I said, there's a couple of different pubs. One's called the Ship and one's called the Merlin that are known for the Parmos. You've got to get a Parmo. I've had a Jeff the Chef, which is a pre-packaged Parmo. It was delicious even then, so definitely make sure you try. But there's a lot of really good ones. I'd also recommend the women's finals weekend in Sheffield. That was a great setup. It just falls on a really, really bad time for me personally, the women's game. But if I could find a way to do it, I'd really be interested in doing it. Like I said, I just look at all these little things and then my little pings in my head of things I want to do, but. Time and money. Time and money is the big issue, of course, and certainly there's so much good stuff to do. But I would genuinely recommend just thinking about taking a weekend where if your team's not at home, like go and watch like your NHL. If you watch NHL 1, go watch your Div 2 side. If you watch Elite League, go watch anything else. Genuinely, I think my big criticism of being more involved in the Elite League is there is a bit of a bubble when it comes to the Elite League and people only watching the Elite League. And I get it. And also as well, there is no wrong answer. You can totally be fine with just watching your team. That is absolutely acceptable. But certainly my personal recommendation would be go watch hockey somewhere else that is different, because it gives you such a good perspective on what you watch week in, week out, where you can see different things. And watching the NHL and the old EPL pretty much exclusively from, was it 2019 to 2025? I didn't go, I didn't actually 2023 was when I started commentating on Elite League games. I didn't watch an Elite League game. I watched like 2 or 3 Elite League games with my own eyes, but in that period, and one of which was after a friend's wedding. So, like, the ability to kind of go and see things in different places is huge. It's really, really huge. And like I say, if you think to yourself, why would I go watch, like, the Billingham Buccaneers versus the Bradford Bulldogs or anything like that? And when I could save up my money and go watch the New Jersey Devils, who I like in the NHL, that's absolutely cool. You don't have to do anything. All this is the recommendations and the ramblings of a madman. I've just been around the sport for a while, and I just say to people, watch the sport, love the sport for the sport if you can, but if you want, but you're entitled to enjoy it in your own way. All I give is suggestion, guidance, not gospel. That's what the gospel is something very, very different, and that you should listen to much more than you should listen to me. Last call on a Friday night. As we head towards the end here. So last call for questions, comments, thoughts and feelings as we head towards the end of the weekend and we head towards whatever hockey is coming next. As I said, for me, Sunday, 6 p.m, face-off at the Guildford Spectrum between the Flames and the Nottingham Panthers. Will be live on Flames TV from about the 5:55-ish. 5:55-ish mark. So do join the party if you are looking for a game, or just come come watch the game. Also good. Just looking for that, we have a video of the Brendan Sellon penalty shot, so we can have a quick squiz here. It's on the Bison Instagram from quite a way away. Lovely move by Sellon to get that goal. So well done to him on that front. The other thing to say as well as we edge towards the end. Congrats to our boys from the Slapshot Syndicate on their 1 year anniversary. I feel drastically old that we are 2 months out from the 15th anniversary of me doing all of this gubbins. But the boys at Slapshot have clearly put a lot of time and a lot of effort and put a lot of passion into what they do. And so the fact that they've hit the year mark is pretty awesome. Congrats to them. It's crazy to think as well. Obviously, their frequency has been a bit shorter this year just because of life changes and stuff like that. But it means that the Macca's boys have been doing it for at least like 2.5, which is pretty impressive stuff, all things considered. And you think as well, for a long time in the national division sort of EPL space, it was me. And now you've got Lightning Lads, Ion Tigers, Slapshot, Macca's Talk Hockey. I'm just trying to think what else we've got. We don't have much from Solway, don't have much from Sheffield in that space. I'm trying to think of anybody I've left out. I don't think I have. But there's all kinds of like bits sort of floating around. I've seen a lot of changes in the last like decade and a half. So, and of course, BOTW's changed in 15 years as well. I've still got Div 2 to do. Would like to make a trip to Ali Pali in the south. Open to offers for the north, but I'm also yet to make it to Solway with the Raiders. It's just so long I can't justify it. You absolutely can justify going to Dumfries. It's amazing, Dave. It's such a good trip. If nothing else, driving up the M6, driving through the Peak District is amazing. Div 2 in the north. My suggestion would be, if you want to minimise the trip, Coventry, because remember the Blaze. Because North 2 is missing from my list as well. I have done WNHL Division 1 because the Bison were in it. The Bison ladies were in it, so I've done that. I've done the Elite because I've done the Guildford Lightning. I've done North. I've done all of the division. The only division I'm missing from the NIHL is North 2. So I need to find a way to tick that off my list. Just like in the way I want to watch a game of Northern Irish football, so I can tick the Northern Irish League off my list. Because again, thank you for nothing, Buckley Town, or I'd have the Welsh League as well. But it means I will have done. It means if I can get to a game and they aren't cancelled because of bad weather, it means if I get Northern Ireland, I'll have done England, Scotland, the League of Ireland and the Northern Irish League by the end of that, and I can just find a way to get to a game in Wales at some point. But yeah, North 2, given where you're based, look at Coventry. Coventry will be a sensible option because it's far enough south where you can do it there and back in a day. Because if you're doing Cambridge, I think you can make it to Cov. Would be what I say. Right, we're going to call it there because the time is ticking on. Bannersonthewall@wordpress.com, your number one website for all things British hockey related. Follow me on my commentary journey through In the Box Thinking as I commentate every week on the Guildford Flames of the Elite Ice Hockey League. As well, you can check out the other bits from the other games we go to, whether it's Running with the Herd, Banners on the Road, of course, which is a new one. We coming from Belfast. You get a full little trip log about that. But all of that is there, as well as Hockey Stories, our long-form, in-depth content series where we tell stories from across the world of ice hockey, from the past to the now to what's coming beyond. And you can enjoy all of that and nearly 15 years worth of stuff over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Of course, you and head down into the description. You've got the links to all of our socials there through our link tree. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Blue Sky, as well as our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW if you want to chuck a couple of quid into the hat, and all the usual Facebook bits and pieces. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, share the video, do all of those wonderful bits and pieces. We are a small channel that talks about British ice hockey every week, every single division. So we are fighting the algorithm ever so slightly. But it would be great to have you along for the ride if you want to subscribe as we kind of push on and just try and get bits and pieces done. Otherwise, you can join us next Wednesday evening. We'll be back to our usual time. We'll be here Wednesday night, 8 p.m. for the BOTW What's Current stream, the only show that goes out live and talks about every game from every division across all of senior British hockey. 5-2 commentary is your final from the Braehead Arena. Another solid win for Kevin Moore's side, who've started picking up some form and some momentum going forward. But yeah, there we are. Another bit done. Thank you very much for bearing with, of course, and thank you, of course, for the fact that it's your support and bits and pieces that have got me into the position I'm in. Where on Wednesday I had to cancel, not do the stream on Wednesday and do it on a Friday because I was commentating on ice hockey instead of just talking, and then get to talk about it with you guys on a Friday, which is also equally awesome. Should be a good weekend. Looking forward to it, and also looking forward to a bit of a rest as well. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, please do everything you can to please be safe. As my friend Scotty Waz would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Have a really great weekend wherever you are. You can catch us back on Wednesday, back where we belong in our usual time slot.